Jesus, nobody the sky. Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprising delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Hello and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Today we'll be talking about Shazam, Fury of the Gods. We first, though, want to remind you that we are sponsored by ProgressiveChristianity.org, a fantastic place to go and get all your progressive Christian needs. You'll find places to network, places where you can find churches that you might be interested in, and a ton of information about progressive Christianity, theologically and otherwise. But more importantly, I want to welcome my good buddy, Caleb. How you doing today, Caleb?
I'm great. It's good to be with you today, Mark.
I am excited that you're here. Listen, we need to let folks know that, as always, this is not a spoiler-free zone. Indeed, it is a spoiler-full zone. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, bookmark this podcast and come back to it in a little bit, because we will be spoiling it, I promise you. And also, make sure you follow us on Facebook. You can find the Moonshine Jesus Show there. And be sure to sign up and download our podcast and all the great places you get your podcast. So I am very curious where you decided to go today, Caleb, with your drink for Shazam. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right up front, I cheated. But I'm going to let you go first.
Okay. Well, there are a lot of good options for Shazam. And I thought about going somewhere with Skittles because of the Skittles scene, you know.
Taste the rainbow.
Ambrosia for the unicorns.
But that would have been a great call. No?
It would have been. It took a lot of preparation that I did not do.
I get that.
You have to infuse vodka and all of this.
Oh, yeah. No.
Time to do it. I just saw the movie last night, so I went with the Shazam cocktail. And there were lots of fun cocktails online. And Shazam is an acronym. And so there are ingredients in this drink that are all a part of the acronym. So the Shazam cocktail has the wisdom of Solomon, S, right? And that's lime juice.
Got you.
Because the sour taste awakens you and makes you shiver.
Oh, that's interesting. All right.
The strength of Hercules, vodka. It's
it's a party drink. Yeah.
Yes, right. And then the stamina of Atlas. I've got tequila because that is associated with stamina.
Right.
It's trying to stay awake at a party, things like that. The strength of the power of Zeus. Now, the recipe called for absinthe, but I know you've got absinthe at your house, Mark. I didn't have any. Yeah. So I used something strong, though. I used 115 proof bourbon to substitute there.
Nice.
And then the Courage of Achilles mezcal usually takes some courage to try mezcal after you've sniffed that. And then the Speed of Mercury simple syrup, because your taste buds pick up the sweet scent very quickly. And then a splash of cranberry juice to represent Billy Batson, who manifests all these powers. So here it is. I've already drank some of this.
I love it.
And I say Shazam when I drink it. It's strong and good. Okay,
I love it.
So how about you? What are you drinking today, Mark? I can't see what you're
we are recording on my birthday. And on my birthday, I drink one of two things. I drink a lot of water and I drink bourbon. And so today, I didn't even try to make it match Shazam. I went out, I bought myself a special bottle of I.W. Harper bourbon. It's Cabernet aged, and it's from their reserve collection. So I'm just treating myself on my birthday is all I'm really doing. So
happy birthday!
Hey, I appreciate it. Cheers to you, sir. And yeah, it's my birthday, so go easy on me today. All right?
No promises.
Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. Today we are both celebrating Mark Sandlin's birthday and
Woo!
are talking about Shazam! Fury of the Gods. So this takes place 2 years after Thaddeus Sivana's defeat, and we see the Shazam family using their powers, fighting evil, coming to terms with both being teenagers and superheroes in adult bodies. And as they're trying to discover that, Hespera, Calypso, and Anthea, the daughters of the Titan Atlas, steal the wizard's broken staff that Billy Batson had carelessly left behind, and they use that staff to go into the mortal world to imprison the wizard and to take over the mortal world and make them pay for the things that they have done to the gods. So
yes,
here's the thing: Shazam, I think, has been one of the bright spots in the DC Extended Universe's collection of terrible films over the past 10 years or so. And the first one was very well received. Shazam! Fury of the Gods has not been so well received. Its reception has been very divisive, in fact. So it's got a 53% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes with the critics, but the audience has given it an 88% fresh rating. So here's my question, Mark. I want to know who's right. Is it the critics or is it the audience?
They're wrong, both of them.
I think who's right? Mark Sandlin? Mark Sandlin. Right.
I think it's somewhere in between the two. You know, it has its moment. It is nowhere. It has. We just need to say up front, at least in my opinion, it is not as good as the first Shazam movie, which I thought was a lot of fun, and it was engaging. Watching him learn how to, as a child, in this Superman body, figuring out what that means, and using it to his advantage at times. That was a lot of fun. I just felt like, while there were a lot of good things about this movie, it was very funny. Some of the fight scenes were really interesting, and some of the themes that they cover were good things to be talking about. I just felt like it never really found its ground. Like it just was. It felt like throwing darts at a dartboard, trying to see one of these are going to stick, and it'll be great when it does. And it just, I don't know. I never felt like it found its footing. So for me, I would give this like a 70, maybe a 72, maybe a 72.
72. Yeah. So I found myself agreeing with the audience. I had a good time watching it. I thought it was fun. And some of the complaints I've seen about it has been that it hasn't really dealt with as much of like the teenage dealing with superpowers, and it hasn't dealt with them as much in their kind of usual bodies dealing with things. And I think that's true. I think there is some of that in there, and I think they did rely a little bit too heavily on CGI fight scenes and things like that. But I think it was a better movie than, say, Ant-Man that we watched a few weeks ago. That was all CGI, and I think it had less of a story. I think there was a solid story here, and I thought it was a lot of fun. And I think that's important for comic books, movies right now, especially in the DC extended universe, to have some fun. But here's one thing I wonder about, Mark. I wonder if part of the problem was the villains. Do you think the villains had anything to do with the poor reception? Were the villains too generic? I mean, just kind of the daughters of Atlas. For instance, I've seen speculation that maybe if they had gone with Mr. Mind, the little worm that we saw at the post-credit scene in the first one, that it might have been a more interesting and quirky movie. What do you think? Is it the villains
it certainly
something to be desired?
It would have helped if Mr. Mind would have been the main villain, because sort of what he's known for, and what they hinted at in the first movie was that he was going to put together his, I don't remember what he calls it, but the
monster
force or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on that. This is one of the places where my comic book knowledge is just not there, because I didn't read a whole bunch of these. So
I mean, in fairness, it was a different comic. It wasn't originally DC, and and these villains are a little obscure. So.
Yeah. So, but it certainly would have been more interesting. I mean, I think Helen Mirren was incredible in her role. I don't know that they handled that character particularly well. Like, they each had different types of powers, but they didn't really do any setup to kind of explain what the power really was. So you were kind of guessing it, and it didn't feel quite as menacing just because you didn't really know what it was. Lucy Liu, I always like everything she does, but in this one, she just it was almost like she had one trait. It was just this one single look, this one single attitude, and it was the entire movie. There was hardly any variation in it at all. Thea would be the one, or Anthea would be the one that I think was interesting. She was a very interesting character. If they could have made all the other two, given them as much depth, I think it could have been better. But it certainly was part of the weakness, I think, for sure. I'm taking it that you did.
I think they were generic, and I think these are fantastic actresses, right? I mean, we've got Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu and Rachel Ziegler. I mean, these are all incredible, all people who have incredible potential that they underutilized and underdeveloped. But one thing that I did really like, Mark, was all the Easter eggs of different DC comics in here. Did you have a favorite Easter egg?
My favorite Easter egg was the person who delivered the line and called Shazam Captain Marvel. That was Michael Gray, and I watched some of the television series in the 70s where he played Billy on that show, and I love that they had him in the red shirt with the yellow collar on it, and he gets to say Captain Marvel, because this is lawsuit history here, where they don't get to actually ever call him Captain Marvel. Like, they can't give him that as his name, but they actually checked with DC, and DC was like, yeah, you can say it, like that suggestion, no problem. And that was so much fun. How about you? What was your favorite?
Yeah, that was so fun to see Captain Marvel, and to have that suggested as a name. Captain Sparkle Fingers is my favorite suggested name that they that
was a good one. That was a very good one.
Yeah. So, but for those who don't know, of course, Captain Marvel is the original name of the character, right? So my favorite Easter egg is Diedrich Bader, who voices Batman in Batman the Brave and the Bold.
Which is going to be one of the movies coming up.
Right. Yeah. So, I liked getting to see him as one of the teachers who Lucy Liu's character then convinces to jump off the side of the school. But it was fun to see him.
And they talk about that. Always forget that humans pop like grapes. I was like, whoa.
But that was one of the lighthearted lines that made it kind of fun. So, okay, Mark, I've got a question I've got to ask you. We're in this time. This is the last movie of the DCEU as it is before The Flash comes out over the summer. That's going to do a soft reboot of the DC Comics movies, right? And shows the DC Extended Universe to the DC Universe. There's been talk about Zachary Levi perhaps staying in the role of Shazam, but in large part, James Gunn said it was going to depend on the reception of this movie. Do you think that Shazam is going to make the cut in this new DC universe, or you think he's going to be on the chopping block?
All right. Well, hold on. First of all, I need to scratch off one of my questions for the Make Me Look Stupid segment. And you did it again, man.
I did it.
I got 3 ready, though. So you got 2 more you got to knock off before you get them all.
It's been weeks since I've been able to guess correctly.
I kind of feel like I feel like we are going to see him, and I don't think if it was based just on how successful they are, we would not see him because it's not done what they wanted at the box office. And honestly, I think this show proved that the Shazam story as an origin story makes great movie making. The moment that you shift it into something else and you're not doing an origin story and that, it's just kind of it's it's just it doesn't have everything. So, but here's the thing: at the end of both of them, they put Mr. Mind in it. That, and they have invested in, and he says, he is a psychic bug. And then in Peacemaker, which Gunn did, who is now the new head, we have psychic butterflies. Makes me wonder if they might be of the same universe or of the same planet or even the same species. I don't know. It just feels like there's some connective tissue there. He's already said Peacemaker will continue on. I think that Mr. Mind is the reason why Shazam is still going to be around, because you need Shazam for Mr. Mind to be the bad guy, because that's the only comic he was ever in that I'm aware of. So what do you think? Is it going to still be around?
I think Zachary Levi's character is still going to be around. I'm not sure we're going to see the rest of the Shazam family.
Not the Shazam fam?
Yeah, I don't know, which is weird, right? Because that was one of the whole points of the
whole
movie.
point of it was even sort of one of the big points of the first movie. It's like him not having a family and finally finding a family, and then he makes his family the Shazam fam. I mean, it would be weird, but you might be right.
And that's also something that makes it kind of fun, is to see all the kids interacting with each other and the adult actors playing like they're kids interacting with each other. I think that's fun and it's enjoyable. But I think the post-credit scene, or I guess the mid-credit scene, where we've got Shazam approached by characters in Peacemaker, I think signals that his character is going to continue to be in this DC universe, and I think that's a good decision. I think that if he's utilized correctly, he's one of the few really successful characters that we've seen over the past decade. I think it would be a shame to see that washed away just because we're doing something new. And I think if you're going to choose a character, that's the one I would choose. There's been a lot of upset about Henry Cavill not being Superman and all. I don't think that's a mistake. I think holding on to Zachary Levi is the best decision. I have got so many things that I want to geek out about, Mark.
I hear you, man.
This was fun. There's a lot to geek out about. But, even though this is kind of a fun, kid-based superhero movie, there's a lot theologically and politically here, too. So why don't we take a break? Why don't we listen to the drop, and let's come back and talk about theology and politics.
Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Won't you shine a light?
Hello and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. You're joining us for our Theo Politico segment. So, Caleb, right off the bat, I want to jump to one moment in the movie to make sure that we talk about this before we jump into a few other things. The moment is when they're running through as heroes through their parents' bedroom, and it's a lot of chaos. And they're just I think they say "just say it" or something like that. And Pedro tells his family that he's gay, and everyone says, "Yeah, we knew," and then they just keep moving on.
Yeah.
Is that what it should really be like when people share with their friends and their family, "Hey, I'm gay"? Or should it be more? Should it be more of turning to them and embracing them and making sure they know that how much you care about them no matter what? Or should it be something even completely different? It was an interesting way of them showing this. Because it's a very big moment in a person's life, and to see how they handled it, I thought was was interesting. And so my question is that how it really should be?
So that struck me as an interesting moment too, because it's in the midst of this very this like tense scene. They're being chased by this dragon, and
Right.
they've got just a couple of seconds to tell the parents that they got to get out of the house. And they've just found out they're superheroes, and in the midst of that, Pedro says, "I'm gay," and nobody cares. And I mean, I suppose I feel like what they were trying to do was say, hey, this shouldn't be a big deal. You are who you are, and people should just accept it and go through it. And I understand that. I felt like it was also maybe a way of them just plugging a gay character in without actually exploring anything about what that means or any kind of development. So I felt like that was unfortunate, or at least that's the way it hit me. Is I didn't feel like we actually got to explore what any of that meant. It just kind of felt like a throwaway line, which I felt was kind of cheapened the character a little bit and cheapened the sexuality of the character a little bit. I think that hey, maybe in an ideal world, you just say I'm gay and people say, okay, well, fine, great.
Yeah.
But that's not the world that we live in, where even if your family is totally cool with which, there are families where it's not a big deal, or if you come out as gender non-binary or trans or whatever, then people want to walk that journey with you. But I think there needs to be a stopping at a moment of recognizing the vulnerability of admitting that. I think there needs to be a promise of love and support, because even if it's not a big deal in the family, it's going to be a big deal out in the world. And I think churches need to do that too.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, churches can just say, oh, yeah, we love you. But I think doing for instance, if someone is trans, doing like a renaming ceremony and stuff like that is powerful to just stop for a moment, not just blow and go by the biggest moments of life and say, we see you, we hear what you're saying, and we think it's sacred and you are important. So we're not going to just dismiss it. That was my read. I wasn't real happy with the way that was presented.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mark?
When I first saw it, my first instinct was, oh, okay. That's actually, I kind of like the fact that it's like, yeah, you're our brother. We're fine. No worries. We're going on. But then as I reflected on it, I realized, it should be how it should be is I'm going out with Jack tomorrow, and you go, oh, okay. Well, you and Jack go have fun. But the fact that he feels like he has to announce it to his family tells you everything you need to know about the world that they understand him to be in. That it is a world where it's something that he's not sure how safe he feels, even though he has this incredibly supportive family. But he has been waiting and this was the moment he's willing to say something. If you put the character in that world where it's necessary to come out, then this was a horrible way of handling. It's almost dismissive of him, and he. I want to imagine that once they saved the world, that the family got back around him and said, we're here for you. We love you. The world's going to treat you at times in a really horrible way, but know that your fam's always got your back. And that's what needed to happen. So it was a weird place to put that, because even if they wanted to do that they couldn't have done it then. But it was pretty clear, frankly, the way that they handled it, that they weren't going to do that. They just all kind of like, oh, okay, and move on. And I'm with you. It felt wrong. I felt like it definitely his sexuality wasn't being taken seriously, considering the society they clearly are putting those characters into. So I wasn't thrilled with that. And I love what you had to say about what the church's role in that should be, which leads me into what I'd like to do now. I want to take some of the themes that, like I said at the beginning, it felt a lot like they were just throwing darts to see what was going to stick. There are several really important themes that get sort of touched on and then sort of not. What I'd like to do is, since it's my birthday,
I'm imagining darts sticking for just a second on the dartboard
and then go
falling off. They kind of landed.
I like it. So since it's my birthday, I want you to do all the hard work for the rest of
Okay,
this
it's
segment.
only fair.
I
Yeah.
want you to do all the hard work. So I'm going to go through the list of some of, not a big list, but 4 or 5 themes from the movie, and I'd like you hear your thoughts on what role the Christian church should play in these things, or if they should at all, in terms of helping people with it,
Okay, all right.
and maybe even some thoughts on how. So one of the first
Okay,
big ones, yeah.
you're gonna
Are
give them
you,
to me all at once, and then I'm gonna
no,
go through.
I will not. I'll give them to you one at a
time.
time. And you know, if we don't get through the list, if we don't get through the list, it's okay. I'm just really curious to hear where you fall on some of these. So
Okay.
the first one is, and this was a really big one that they did kind of run throughout the movie and did some solutions to, is the fear of abandonment. I think it even starts with him saying, I'm too stupid to have these powers or something like that, and that he from that moment on, he's just worried that no one's going to believe or want him or keep him, that he's aging out of his family. There is this very clear, it's part of what do they say? All or none, or what was,
Yeah,
and it was his
all or none.
all or none, something like that. And it was part of his way of trying to keep the family together and not be abandoned and going off on her own. So take fear of abandonment. What role, if any, should the church have in helping folks who find themselves in that type of a situation?
Yeah, and I also should say that I think this is the main theme of the movie, and it runs through it the clearest. And I think they set it up nicely, but I don't feel like we really tie a little bow on that.
They kind of tie it loosely, like, well, okay, look, he doesn't have fear of abandonment anymore, but they only do a tiny bit of work to let us know maybe why. There's that moment. There's that moment on the top of the parking garage or wherever it was where Mom says, "Can you turn back into my Billy? I need a moment with my Billy."
Right.
And that moment did feel like, well, but it's not that simple, is it?
No, it's not. And so I kind of had a problem with the main theme of it. Even though I like the movie, I feel like we didn't really get a clean resolution to this. In terms of what the church should do, though, I think there are a lot of folks who have abandonment issues, especially when we're talking about people who often come to progressive church communities like yours and mine, Mark. Is that, there are so many people who have been abandoned by their family or who have been disowned by their family, especially people in the LGBTQIA plus community who, have been pushed aside from their family or told that they're not worthy by their family. And I think the church can play a role in helping people to have a family of choice whenever they've lost their family of origin. And, this goes both ways. I did a funeral yesterday for someone who's kind of was abandoned by their children when they came out. And so I think that, that churches can be a way for people to come together as a family and to find connection in the midst of places that have disowned them. And so I think when churches are at their best, and that's an important qualifier because churches are not often at their best. But I think
no church is always at its best.
Well, that's true too. Churches are often not at their best, and no church is always at their best. Those are both important distinctions.
They are.
When a church is at its best, and it surrounds people with love and care and compassion, then it can be really powerful for people to have a source of family and support. So that's in an ideal world, what role I would love for the church to play. How about you?
I wanted you to do the heavy lifting, but I will say that I am in complete agreement that is, if anything, it's exactly what the church is built for, as far as I'm concerned, is to be this safe space for people, particularly folks who may have felt abandoned in their life and still worry about where they'll be accepted and where they won't be. The moment you walk through a door of a church, there should never be any doubt in anyone's mind that you are welcomed here and you will be loved here and you'll be fully accepted for who you are as we grow together spiritually as a community and as individuals. I think that it's essential Matter of fact, if you walk into a church and have any doubt that feeling is there, if you're not sure it's there, turn around and go back out the doors, because it's not going to get better. It won't get better from there. You're going to get hurt, and we don't want to see that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
So-
Yeah, they're supposed to put their best foot forward, right? It doesn't
Right.
get anywhere. So I realize I'm doing the rest of the most of the heavy lifting here, Mark. So for the rest of them, you can just say I agree. You're right. You're 100% right.
Well, I think we got time for one more, and it's
Okay, good. Okay.
and it's-
Yeah, you had like 5, Mark, and here I am.
I do, but
on. Tell me, what's the next one?
It's all right. We're gonna do a related one.
Okay.
Because it's related to one of the big bads in the movie, the giant dragon that emanates fear from its body. And there is this sub-theme of importance of not just overcoming a fear of abandonment, but just overcoming your fear in general. So again, from the standpoint of the Christian church, what role does the church have, or should it have, in helping folks understanding their fears and overcoming their fears?
So I think
We're really good
unfortunately-
the Christian church is really good at trying to make people fearful of something. Be scared of those people, be scared of going to hell, be scared. So, but what should the role actually be?
That's exactly where I was going to go with this, because I was going to say that the church is actually a tool for fear most of the time. The church is the dragon trying to keep people living in fear so that they behave in a way that church leaders have decided is the appropriate way to behave. So, but that's bad theology, and that's not
really
good
is.
Christian practice.
Right.
Because good Christian practice is about overcoming our fears of life and helping us to make meaning and sense of the world. And so I think that, again, if a church community is doing what it ought to be doing, it ought to be a place not that makes us fearful, Mark, but a place that surrounds us with such authenticity that we feel like we can bring our fears about life, about God, about the world, a place where we can really share those and dig into those and figure out what all of that's about, unpack bad theology and all of that as we try to make the world a little less scary of a place, or at least we come up with strategies then with things that are scary, not just in our lives, but in the world, like say evils, like say fascism, like how it is that we then as Christian community can combat those in a real way. So anyway, I wish the church would be a little less fearful, Mark.
Yeah,
and,
me too, man.
Wouldn't be the dragon.
And you know, there are the churches out there that are working hard to put a different foot forward and work against, and even sort of call out the churches that are inciting fear rather than inciting love, which is kind of the counterbalance that we really need there. So we could go through that. We've got so many more that we could be talking about. Like I said, there were a bunch of darks they threw, but those are kind of some of the big ones that I wanted to touch on because of the way that related to what the church should be and what the church unfortunately can be at times right now. So, but we're out of time for this segment. So the good news though is that we get to go to our favorite segment, the Make Me Look Stupid segment, where we commence to trying to make our co-host look stupid.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're in our final segment, the Make Me Look Stupid segment, where we ask each other questions to try to make each other look stupid. I have already stolen one of Mark's questions, and I feel very proud about having done that.
You're very good at it, man. You're very good at it.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I tried, but I also know that Mark has multiple other questions. But before he can ask them, I'm going to ask mine. And this is a question that I was wondering about, Mark. Why is it that this golden apple, the seed, that when it's planted in the God realm is a thing of beauty, but whenever it's planted in the human realm, spawns all of these monsters. What's so different about the God realm and the human realm that makes the tree do such vastly different things? And
Well,
does
yeah.
that say anything about our theology?
Well, I'm not going to be able to answer the second part because I have a very simple answer for the first part. The reason it's different is because it's not supposed to be here. You're putting it where it doesn't belong, so it spawns in negative, bad ways. It is designed to grow that tree in the realm of the gods, and so when it doesn't get the nourishment of that particular space and place, that's what happens. So I'm going to have to take a rain check on the theological part because I think it's that simple of an answer. What do you think, though?
So I'm going to answer. So I'm going to use your answer to come up with a theological answer. Yeah,
love it.
yeah.
Love it.
So because I think your answer is right about why it is that it thrives in one area and doesn't in the other. And I think that theologically what that tells us is that there are some places where we can thrive. There are some places, there are some communities, there are some places where we're supposed to be that allow us to thrive. And then there are places that like suck us dry, like suck out all our energy, turn us into people who we really aren't. Like that can be like toxic work environments, that can be toxic relationships, all of those kinds of things, and can make us into like this tree that's spawning monsters. And so I like this, Mark, because I think this is theologically rich. That if we do some discernment about where we're supposed to be, that can really help us to thrive.
I love it. So, great answer.
Hey, look, teamwork, Mark.
Hey, boom.
High five you. Virtual high five.
Virtual high five. Very good. All right. So my turn. Yeah. And so one of the themes of this movie, I would argue, is that it isn't your superpowers that really makes you brave or a hero, that it's who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And if that is true, why do all the kids, when they say Shazam, turn into super fit adult heroes? If who they are is what makes them a hero, why are they all super fit? So we lose a crutch. The kid who's overweight all of a sudden is this fit superhero. Like somehow that wasn't going to work, and none of them remain kids. And let's face it, we got comic books after comic books of kid heroes, but please help me understand why that was a theme of the movie. When they turn into superheroes, they turn into these super fit adult heroes.
Because it's fun for kids to envision themselves as adults. I mean, I think this is one of the problematic things actually about it, because it says that it's supposed to be realizing your fullest potential. I think in the first movie is what they said happens whenever you become the superhero Shazam, right? Or a part of the Shazam family.
Right.
You're living into the greatest potential that you could have. But that does assume that like the greatest potential is like complete physical fitness.
Fully able-bodied. You know, it's just
fully able-bodied, right?
And an adult, because a kid couldn't do this.
Right, and so I think like the Gospels tell us something different about what
kids
have to say
little
about
something.
That. So I think that's actually kind of problematic. It's also like people in their 30s, early 40s, late 30s, early 40s. Like that's the ideal time of life. It's not like you're when you've gained the most wisdom. It's and I mean, in part, it's because that's the time that's fun to see people go and battle each other and all. But I think if you're
Helen Mirren was great in her battle scene.
Helen Mirren is just like Lucy Liu. I mean, is she just like
Incredible.
Getting younger?
I know, it's weird, right? It's crazy.
So I think that's one of the things that's problematic, actually. About, like if they're actually living into their full potential, they're not all people who are in their 30s and able to. What do you think?
No, I find it incredibly problematic, and when that started in the first movie, I already was kind of like, well, I know that's based on the comics, and the comics were written, I think, in the 40s, maybe, and that's kind of like a mindset. And there hadn't been enough work done in a public way that more people were aware of what you were doing when you were doing things like that. But we switch stuff from comics all the time, and so that bothered me from the very beginning. And then when in this movie they made it such an important part of particularly Freddy's character development, that what really makes you a hero is what's inside, who you are, and not your superpowers. I really felt like that they were missing the reality of what they were already doing. That they're making this claim, but they're creating superheroes that are very opposite of what the claim is, and I do find it problematic. And even if we just get Shazam himself and not the Shazam fam from then on, it's still going to be problematic, because you know, somehow he has to be bigger and stronger and older to have any ability to really be a superhero, and that's just not real.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mark. You know what? This is against the rules, but you know what? We make the rules, and so I'm going to break them really quick because I've got to know. I just got to pick your brain here before we tell people what we're doing next week. Okay.
All right.
So Shazam has underperformed at the box office from what they expected it to, and we've seen some of that here lately. Yeah. Is the market too oversaturated with superhero movies right now? Or do you think our interest in that is waning after about 20-ish years of seeing superhero movie after superhero movie?
I think it's a combination of, it is oversaturated, and there's just so much out there. We get to a point of having to just pick and choose. I'm not going to go see them all. So which ones which ones will I go see? But I also think that because it's become such a money maker, they've become very formulaic, and that's just not interesting. I don't care if it's a superhero movie or not. If you make a formulaic movie over and over again, I'm going to stop watching your movies. I'm not interested. Be creative, do something new, do something different. Early on, just being a superhero movie felt like it was that. But then they were also fairly creative with their storylines and how they went about even filming. It just feels like now it's like they bring in, you know, a team of folks, and they put them through questions to make sure that they make this movie exactly the way that's going to have the perfect appeal, and it loses its heart and it loses its energy. I think it's partly that as well. I mean, clearly you have some thoughts on it.
No, I think you're right. I think it is formulaic, and I think leaning into the weirdness of some of it, which is something that, admittedly, James Gunn, who's taking over the studio with Peter Safran,
he's very good at.
And so I'm hoping that brings some new energy into like superhero franchises, because I know that I don't want to see fewer superheroes movies being made. I just want to see them being better and more interesting movies.
Please.
So next week, we're not going to talk about a superhero movie.
No.
We're going to talk about a different movie, John Wick Chapter 4. Have you gotten into the John Wick movies?
I tell you, I have not gotten into any of the John Wicks. Part of it is just my personal problem. I've seen 2 movies that I thought Keanu Reeves was good in. He's a great person. Like, I have such a respect for him as a person. He's an amazing guy. I've just never been able to get into his acting, and that's just my issue, because I know lots of people who absolutely love him. So John Wick's just been one of those that never really got on my radar enough to pay attention to. So this is going to be interesting for me, because I think you're kind of a fan, right?
I'm a John Wick fan. I'm a Keanu Reeves fan, and I'm a John Wick fan. I've seen the other 3 chapters, and I think there's a lot here to unpack, especially about revenge, retaliation, and what happens when you kill John Wick's dog. It's not a good thing, Mark.
Okay. I can't wait to find out. I can't wait to find out.
I'm just going to warn you. Don't mess with John Wick's dog. Okay. So next time we'll talk about John Wick Chapter 4. And we can't wait to see you until next time on the Moonshine Jesus Show.